I did want to just follow back up with the board for just a moment and talk about what a great honor and a privilege it is to serve in this community and work with such an amazing board. My wife and my daughters absolutely love living here. Of course, that makes it easy also for me to also love living here. And again, as I say all the time, I'd be remiss if I didn't also recognize the amazing team that we have here in Lexington One. These folks sitting here, a lot of folks sitting out in the audience tonight. It doesn't happen without their hard work and their dedication, their effort, and a commitment and a drive to go above and beyond. And so I so much appreciate them as well. And also, I still see some of our new board members in the audience, Ms. Garris and Dr. Guyton, and I didn't see Mr. Oswald, but you know, I'm looking forward to working with the new board as well as we empower each child to design the future. So certainly an exciting time for Lexington One Schools, and I look forward to what comes next. So speaking of exciting times, Mr. Butler is here to talk about our comprehensive annual financial report. And we have to go through our audit, I believe. And so, Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Dr. Little. By law, we're required to have an annual audit conducted by an independent third-party CPA firm on our financials and compliances. So for this year's audit, the firm of Burkett and Burkett CPAs conducted our audit. They do an excellent job. Remember, for the past 3 years, we had the firm of Green and Finney, who did the 3 years prior to this, and they also do an excellent job. But this year, the bid went back to Burkett CPAs. Matthew Hodges is the audit manager, and it's always a pleasure to work with him and his staff. I would also like to take a minute to recognize and thank the district's finance staff, especially Deborah Seymour, our Director of Fiscal Services, Dina Bishop, our Director of Accounting, Donna Patton, the District's Controller, and David Cobb, the Director of Business Services, since they're the ones who do the lion's share. I actually did almost all the work, and I just stand up here and give the report. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Hodges.
Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Little, thank you very much for your time this evening. Appreciate the opportunity to present the results of our audit. We are presenting again the results of our audit as of the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018. And I will provide just a brief introduction to our team, address our required audit communications, and provide a summary of both our audit and the financial statements. Okay. And our key points of contact for our team, our audit partner in the West Columbia office is Larry Montague. And again, I'm your audit manager, Matthew Hodges, overseeing the day-to-day performance of your audit. And of course, we want to extend our thanks and appreciation to the members of your fiscal services team and all of the employees of Lexington One for all of their assistance in performing the audit. This is, as the report indicates, a very comprehensive audit involving a number of areas of your district, and so we appreciate all the assistance we received. So for our required audit communications, there were no significant changes in your accounting policies during fiscal year 2018. We experienced no disagreements with management. There were no consultations with other independent accountants during the performance of the audit. No issues were discussed with our firm prior to our retention as your auditors. We encountered no significant difficulties in performing our audit, and again, we received full cooperation from your staff. So the major change that occurred during fiscal year 2018 was the district's implementation of GASB 75. This is the accounting and financial reporting standard for benefits other than pensions. And this is a similar standard to GASB 68, which the district implemented 3 years ago. GASB 68 required that the district report its share of an actuarially determined net pension liability That pension liability is determined at the state level, and then based on the district's contributions to PEBA and South Carolina Retirement, you're required to record your share of the net pension liability. This standard, it does the same thing for net OPEB, or other post-employment benefit liabilities. You're required to look at how much the district contributed during the fiscal year, and based on those contributions, you record your share of that net OPEB liability on the district-wide financial statements. One important thing to note, this does not affect your fund financial statements. Your general fund and other funds are not affected in terms of recording a net OPEB liability or deferred inflows or outflows. It's on a district-wide level. All state and local governments are required to implement this standard in accordance with best practices and accounting principles. One more point on that slide, there was a required reduction in beginning net position for the district of $274.2 million in order to reflect that June 30th, 2017 amount of that net OPEB liability. And the ending net OPEB liability was $265 million. That compares to the district's pension liability, just to give you an idea, of $358 million. Okay. So for our audit, we tested transactions based on our understanding of the district. We use our professional judgment to determine sample sizes for testing the district's activities. And we designed our audit for reasonable but not absolute assurance. And as a result of our testing, we did not note any instances of non-compliance with district, state, or federal requirements. We have issued 3 clean opinions on your financial statements first, an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. Secondly, we did not note any deficiencies in internal controls for the district. And we did issue a clean opinion in regards to your compliance with your major federal award programs for fiscal year 2018. In terms of an overall look at the district's financial stability, you continue to be in excellent financial position. Your Standard & Poor's AA bond rating was reaffirmed with the 2017 advanced refunding bond, and Moody's Investor Service reaffirmed its rating of an A1 rating as well. The district continued to follow its practice of assigning budget appropriations for the coming fiscal year. And as was mentioned earlier during the honors and achievements, the district did receive the ASBO award for the 24th consecutive year and the GFOA award for the 23rd consecutive year, which is certainly a high accomplishment to be commended.
May I interrupt right here for just a minute, Madam Chair? I just wanted to say during the election and the bond referendum, the meetings, I think it's important for people to understand that we think we do a pretty good job, and we think John and his team do a pretty good job. But these are outside companies. They have no gain to say that we do a good job other than determining that we do a good job. And so I just wanted to point that out. We're really proud of that outside companies who don't have a dog in this fight say that our district is very sound financially.
Absolutely, and these reports are dissected by each one of those organizations to ensure that you are in best compliance, in addition to your audit. So absolutely. As also was mentioned earlier, the district is certainly a growing district, both from a student population standpoint. Your comprehensive annual financial report shows that your student population increased by 615 students during fiscal year 2018, as well as property value growth of 3.6% within the area compared to the prior year. Looking at the general fund, the overall general fund balance increased by $6.8 million in fiscal year 2018. When we compare revenues in the general fund to the prior fiscal year, you saw $6.8 million in additional local property taxes, $5.1 million in additional state EFA revenues, and $2.7 million that was designated for the state for fringe benefits. General fund expenditures increased by $14.4 million. Overall, the district increased its employees, the number of employees, by 33. You saw salary increases to those employees, as well as state-required increases in insurance premiums and required retirement payments as well. The general fund balance at June 30th of 2018 was $51.9 million. Of that $51.9 million, prepaid items represent $1.1 million. The amount that was assigned for the fiscal year 2019 budget was $9 million, and the remaining unassigned balance was $41.8 million. That represents 16.8% of your total general fund expenditures. The district policy requires a minimum of 7%, but the GFOA actually recommends an amount in the range of 16.7%. So you're right in that area, representing 2 months' worth of your general fund expenditures.
How has that percentage trended over the past couple of years? Have we stayed around that 16% as the general fund budgets increase?
It is an increase from the prior year.
It is. We fell slightly below the GFOA recommendations, actually the last couple of years, but this puts us back right at the
Good.
recommended fund balance for, recommended by GFOA.
And that fund balance and its stability will serve us well in the bond market.
Absolutely. One of the major things that the bond ratings agencies look at is our fund balance. They look at our fund balance, our management of finances, the growth within the district, those kinds of items. Those were all things that were favorable to the district. The one thing they do kind of warn about is if we saw a reduction in the fund balance. Now, if it's planned for and you have good reason for it, they'll take that into consideration. But if we were to drop in our bond ratings, and we're going to issue a bunch of bonds over the next few years, 365 million plus, then we would lose money on the interest we'd have to pay in those bonds. We'd lose millions of dollars in the long run.
It's just like a savings account at your own home. So when you go to buy a house, the bank looks more favorably upon you if you're a good money manager and you have savings and they know that you're not going to be a liability. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and you hate to think it, but you look at like Mexico Beach in Florida, they just had that horrible hurricane come through. Well, if just say, that God knows that's worst case scenario, but if something like that were to happen, we would at least be able to pay our employees and keep things going until everybody could get back up and running. So it's basically a savings account for a rainy day fund.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Just the last point on that slide is that your total governmental fund balances, including special revenue funds, debt service, and capital projects, were $136.5 million at June 30th, 2018. I know it's a little hard to see, but this is just a condensed statement of net position. Again, this reflects the government-wide activities of the district, showing $782 million in total assets. Your liabilities, again, that new line item on there, you can see $265 million for the net OPEB liability. Not sure what happened there, but I'll kind of read to you the rest. The net pension liability was $358 million again, so it's a lesser amount for the OPEB, but certainly not a small amount. The net position includes net investment in capital assets of $192 million, restricted net position of 8.3, and the unrestricted deficit, again, includes that net pension liability and the net OPEB liability.
But just to reiterate, the net pension liability went up by $20 million.
It did, and that is based on, again, your share of the state's overall deficit.
Because it's funded at 60% of, or some, yeah.
Compared to the assets compared to the liabilities. Okay. Your program revenues, you can see increase in charge for services, $5.6 million. The operating grants, $153 million. Overall property taxes, $142 million. Other state revenue in lieu of taxes, $51 million. So total revenues of $356 million. Instructional expenses were $185 million. Support services were $138, and you can see interest and other charges, $21 million. So overall total expenses, $345 million. Yes.
And Mr. Butler, the state revenue in lieu of taxes, do you get a feel from county leadership if there's going to be any change in that, or is there any development that's happening?
We should be seeing some. There are a couple new developments that are going on. The solar panel out in the Pillion is a pretty large undertaking, and that's the fee in lieu of. The offset to that is, as we see some of these companies that are coming to pay in the fee in lieu of and reach different stages according to their agreement with the county, if they've met their requirements, then they actually see a drop in the amount of fee in lieu of that they pay. Overall, I think we'll still continue to see some kind of an increase in those fee in lieu of payments.
And there at the bottom, again, you can see the increase in net position of $11 million. That does include, as you mentioned, the GASB 68 pension liability increasing. So even with that going up, you still have an increase in net position for the district, which just speaks to your strength. That net position did decrease overall, again, because of the adoption of GASB 75. Turn off. All done with my presentation, anyway, so at this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you for your audit. Obviously, checking behind us as a district is important to us as a board. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.